Okay, so I've got a pretty wild theory for you today. What if I told you that one single week, just 7 days in November, was basically the entire 1990s crammed into a time capsule? I'm serious. Everything that defined the decade, the cynicism, the heart, the absolute game changers, it all happened right here.
Yeah, I had to use the 90s slang, right? But it's true. This was not just some random week on the calendar. This week was a cultural anchor point, a period that basically shaped the entire memory of the decade for so many of us.
So what's the secret?
Well, it all boils down to this thing called the holiday hype loop. Just think about it. That week from November 17th to the 23rd, it's right before Thanksgiving. This was the moment, the starting gun, when every company, every TV network, every movie studio unleashed their biggest holiday stuff on us, creating these massive cultural waves, from TV specials to those toy crazes that drove our parents absolutely bonkers.
And that fight for our attention, it started right there in the living room. This week was ground zero for the battle over the remote control when you actually had to choose what you were going to watch live.
This right here was a classic choose-your-fighter moment for an entire generation. Get this. On the exact same night, November 17th, 1994, you had two choices. Over on one channel, you had Seinfeld being its usual cynical, brilliant self, taking down celebrity culture with a whole plot about John Voight's car. And on the other channel, you had the very first Thanksgiving episode of Friends, which was pure heart and kicked off a tradition that lasted for a decade. So who were you, a cynic or a romantic? That one night pretty much defined your sitcom loyalty for the rest of the 90s. But of course, not everybody was into the whole cozy sitcom thing. The 90s had this powerful anti-establishment voice too. And this week, oh yeah, it delivered the ultimate anthem for that crowd.
And here it is, November 19th, 1993, Addams Family Values drops, and Wednesday Addams gives this speech. For any kid who felt a little weird about the whole Thanksgiving story we learned in school, this scene was everything. It was like watching the entire wholesome myth get set on fire right in front of your eyes. She was our deadpan hero, giving a whole generation its first taste of a subversive history lesson. Okay, let's pivot to the second major point here, and I am not exaggerating when I say this. This 1 week in November of 1998 might just be the single most important week in the history of video games, full stop.
Why? Because in the span of just 72 hours, 3 days, two of the most revolutionary, most influential video games of all time were released. And they landed on different platforms, championed different genres, and created two totally different philosophies of what a game could even be.
So first, hitting the PCs on November 19th was Half-Life. And this was not just another shooter, no way. This game basically invented the modern cinematic first-person shooter. And the part that totally blew our minds? There were no cutscenes. None. The entire story unfolded from your own point of view, starting with that now legendary 10-minute tram ride into work. It proved once and for all that a video game could tell a story just as well as a Hollywood movie.
And then, just a couple days later, the console kids got their holy grail, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Man, getting that gold collector's edition cartridge, that was the ultimate 90s status symbol. It got the first perfect score ever from Electronic Gaming Monthly, a huge deal back then. But more importantly, it solved the single biggest problem with 3D games: how to fight things. Its invention, Z-targeting, created the language for 3D combat and exploration that games are still using to this day.
So, what does this all mean? It means this 72-hour period was the big bang for the PC versus console war. It literally created the tribes that defined a whole generation of gamers. This wasn't just about what you like to play. It became part of your identity. Were you a gritty first-person keyboard and mouse person or an epic third-person controller and hand person? This 1 week drew the battle lines.
All right, let's switch gears and look at the music world, because every single day after school, at exactly 3:30 in the afternoon, the entire pop culture universe revolved around one thing: MTV's Total Request Live. It was, no joke, the stock market of cool.
And you can literally watch the whiplash of the late 90s happen in real time, right in this 1 week. In November of '98, it was the peak of the boy band civil war. The Backstreet Boys fans mobilized like an army to knock NSYNC off the #1 spot in a single day. It was incredible. Now, fast forward exactly 1 year, to the same week in November '99. The #1 video, Falling Away From Me by Korn. The bubble had burst. Nu metal had stormed the castle. This one chart tells you the entire story of the end of the decade.
But we're not even close to done.
If you zoom out a little, you start to see that this week holds so many more of the decade's defining themes, from the total rebirth of a movie icon to some of its most tragic, unforgettable moments. You want to talk about a perfect bookend? This week contains the entire life cycle of 90s James Bond. On November 17, 1995, GoldenEye comes out and makes Bond cool again. It was gritty, it was modern, it was a perfect rebirth. 4 years later, almost to the day, we get The World Is Not Enough, a movie that gave us Denise Richards as a nuclear physicist named Christmas Jones, just so the movie could end with the line, "I thought Christmas only comes once a year." It's the celebrated birth and the spectacular, cheesy decline all in the same week. Okay, so we need to shift the tone here for a minute, because this week also holds one of the most powerful, most haunting, and truly defining musical moments of the entire 90s. A performance that felt less like a show and more like a final goodbye.
On November 18, 1993, Nirvana recorded their episode of MTV Unplugged, but Kurt Cobain used it to completely deconstruct the whole idea of rock stardom. He refused to play Smells Like Teen Spirit. He asked for the stage to be decorated like a funeral with stargazer lilies and black candles. He even sabotaged the Unplugged format by secretly running his guitar through an amp. The entire thing was filmed in one single, continuous, haunting take. It wasn't a concert, it was a eulogy. One of the most honest and tragic final statements in music history.
Now, on a much, much lighter note, though just as chaotic, you can't talk about this week without talking about the toy crazes. But what's really fascinating is how the craze itself evolved. In '96, you had Tickle Me Elmo, which was basically a straightforward shopping riot, fueled by news reports saying they were sold out. But just 2 years later, Furby. Oh man, Furby took it from a shopping panic to a full-blown tech conspiracy theory.
The paranoia got so bad that the NSA, and I am not making this up, the National Security Agency, banned Furbies from their buildings. They were afraid this little learning toy was actually a spy that could record classified secrets. It's the most 90s thing ever. Brand new tech meets X-Files level government paranoia. It got so out of hand, the creator of the toy had to go on TV and basically say, "Everybody, calm down. It can't record you. It's just a toy."
So when you put it all together, it's pretty clear, right? This 1 week really does have it all. You've got the cynicism of Seinfeld against the heart of Friends, the absolute birth of modern gaming with Half-Life and Zelda. You've got the pop wars on TRL, the rise and fall of James Bond, and the heartbreaking farewell of Nirvana. It's a perfect course sample of an entire decade, all packed into just 7 days.
Which really just leaves us with one last question to think about. In today's world of streaming services and algorithms, where we're all kind of in our own little media bubbles, could a week like this, a week where almost an entire generation was watching, playing, and listening to the exact same things at the exact same time, could that ever happen again? Or was that a special kind of magic that belonged only to the 90s?